Okay, welcome everyone to this meeting of the New York State Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government on November 20th, 2024. I'm Ava Ayers, the Vice Chair of the Commission, and I'll be chairing the meeting today in the absence of our Chair, Len Austin. So welcome, thanks for being here. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Executive Director, Sanford Berland.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ayers. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in accordance with the provisions of the state's open meeting law and executive law section 94. Both here at the New York State Conference Center at 25 Beaver Street, and the Commission's offices in Albany at 540 Broadway and the conference room are open to the public during public session. And public session is also being live streamed, and the link can be found at our website, ethics.ny.gov. Let me note that Chair Austin will be participating in the meeting pursuant to Public Officers Law Section 103-A and the Commission's rules and resolution for remote participation on account of extraordinary circumstances. And between the Albany office and the conference center in Manhattan, there is present for the meeting.
Great. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes from the public session on October 23rd, 2024. So I'll first give a motion and then ask if there's comments. Is there a motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Cardozo? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Edwards, is there discussion?
Just a couple on page 11. On the, I should all these in, but I'm sorry. Fourth line, changes that go will. Next paragraph, we also pointed, noted, pointed. And
Speak up, Jim.
oh, I'm sorry. And in the last paragraph, first 5 days of the notice is apostrophe.
Repeat that, Commissioner, just so I have it.
Sure, I'm sorry. In the first paragraph, I would delete the word go on the fourth line.
Yes.
The second paragraph, I would delete the word pointed. And the third paragraph, an apostrophe after notices.
Thank you. Other, yeah, Commissioner Edwards.
I'm pointing to page 17, discussion around meeting schedule. I was just making sure about that, but I agree with the gist of the conversation. I think for me, the big point was there was a discussion around meeting schedules and whether we should meet alternatively between New York and Albany. And it led to a conversation regarding it being officially designated or unofficially designated. And we had agreed, I had recommended that it be official for the reasons outlined in this, but I didn't capture that in this statement. That we officially agreed to meet as a group alternatively between Albany and New York.
Yeah, I thought there was a motion to that effect, and we passed the motion.
This doesn't capture, for me, this doesn't capture that.
You mean because it says to continue to some extent alternating meetings?
Yes.
I see, Commissioner Cardozo.
I don't recall that motion, and I would have opposed it. I think it's a very good idea that we try to do that. But if someone can't do it, I don't think you have to invoke the exceptional circumstances rule for.
I didn't suggest that.
No, but if it's official, then I think you'd have that argument. I think we should all make an effort to go to Albany or New York. But if someone just can't do it, and someone else is sick, we don't want to not have a quorum for the meeting. So I don't
think that's what we discussed. And I don't think that's the outcome. Am I wrong in that?
I'll just say for whatever it's worth, my recollection is that the motion was to alternate the meetings, not to mandate that all commissioners attend the meetings in those places.
Just
Right, that we were going to designate where the meeting was, but it wasn't going to be mandatory attendance thing.
Right. That was my understanding.
Well, in Exhibit F to this book lists the meeting schedule with a New York or Albany designated. So I just recommend that we leave it at that.
Commissioner Karas, I thought you had your hand up.
I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Edwards, would it solve the problem to just delete
Yes.
the phrase "to some extent"? So it says to continue
Right.
alternating meetings between. I think that reflects my understanding of what we voted on.
That would work for me.
I see Commissioner James as well. Okay, it seems like we all agree. Is there any comments on that in Albany? Okay. Other comments?
Yeah.
There's one other change. Chair pointed out on page 9 at the foot of the page, after Chair Austin left the meeting, the minutes should reflect that Vice Chair Ayers presiding at the meeting.
Are we ready to vote? Okay, then the motion having been made and seconded, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. I see Commissioner Groenwagen's hand up in Albany. That doesn't leave anybody to be opposed or abstaining, so the motion carries unanimously.
And just for clarity's sake, this would be, the motion would be to approve the minutes as corrected.
As corrected, thank you. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the report from staff.
Thank you. The operations update can be found under tab B, the agenda, as we have been doing for quite some time now. In addition to relevant recent activity for the most recent month, in this case October 2024, in column 1, each report also includes comparisons to activity for the prior month, which is column 2, with the comparable monthly year-to-date periods in 2023, which are columns 3 and 5, and the current year-to-date, which is column 4. I will call commissioners' attention first to page 1 of the operations report. The investigations and enforcement division. You'll see that the division received 19 tips, complaints, and referrals in October. Commissioners received notice of those in weekly notifications, and a total of 10 matters were closed. 9 calling matters, 1 continued matter from the prior agency. And a total of 3 new investigations were opened. Commissioners received notice of those as well. The weekly notifications and the ending pending as reflected in the report were 164 and 53 respectively. So that's flat with respect to open investigations. 3 of the closings were matters and 7 pending matters for closed. Again, these were discussed at the prior meeting, the October meeting. The statistics reflect several very significant settlements that investigation and enforcement staff negotiated. Those have been made public. They're posted on the website. Turn to Brian Weinberg, our Director of Investigations and Enforcement.
Thank you. Good morning. Just to add to that, we had 2 additional settlements that are also public, so that's very helpful to 6 in the last couple of months, and we continue to move matters forward towards settlement or possible hearing.
Thank you. And those will be reflected in subsequent reports. Page 2, guidance requests. You can see in October, the number has gone way back up again, 145 in October against 90 in September. The cumulative number continues to run much higher this year than in 2023, over 1,000 year-to-date compared to 640 for 2023. So it's more than a 50% increase in volume on that side of the operation. Michael Sand, our Director of Ethics, can add some more texture to that.
Good morning, everyone. The trend line continues upward. 125 is a new record. The ethics guidance unit has been very busy.
Thank you. Page 3, lobbying. Lobbying 2 has been busy. October is not a bi-monthly month, so we don't see the surge there. Registrations of new lobbyists continue to come in, and of clients, 32 and 71 respectively. And if you compare the figures against last year, see a substantial increase in total registrations of lobbyists, over 8,900 compared with 7,600 in 2023, and over 4,500 clients as compared with 3,900 in the prior year. Part of that reflects the fact that this is the second year in the biennial registration period, so the number does tick up as we go through the period. A number of other significant changes are taking place in respect to regulations that the Commission has adopted, including the emergency regulation that was adopted in the prior meeting. And that I will turn it over to Carol Quinn, our Director of Lobbying. Let me point out, and Carol can provide more details. The lobbying group has conducted a number of very well conducted and well attended training sessions over the past number of weeks. One on the new responsible party regulations, which will become effective shortly, and another on use of the public search query facility in the lobbying application, which has quite rich capabilities. Carol?
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, so we did have a training on the end of, it was October 30th, the very end of the month, on the responsible party regulatory changes. I think over 200, between 200 and 300 people attended. Since then, we've also posted guidance documents and FAQ document that, you know, I think would be very helpful for filers to read about those changes. Like you said yesterday, we had Emily and I and Marlena Diaz hosted a training on the public search function for the media, which I think was very well received. And then we were planning on doing another training for the ethics training certification process, which we've streamlined to help and address comments that were received at last year's public hearing. We plan to do that in mid-December because that goes into effect January 1st.
Thank you. I should point out too that Carol has been invited to participate in a panel at the upcoming COELIG annual meeting in December in recognition of the leading role that our agency plays in lobbying regulation nationwide. So that's quite important.
Is there a question for Shirley?
This overall question regarding, I believe it's increased uptake that we're struggling with, the staff is struggling with. And I know that we've made adjustments to staffing to accommodate that. But my question is the increase in uptake consistent with the staffing recommendations you made prior to the experience of it? Do we anticipate that, and the need to significant?
Yeah, the expanded staffing plan, which we've adjusted not too long ago, in June, reflects both the staffing needs that exist now with the current caseload and our expected increase in activity as a result of a number of things. So the answer is yes. Will it turn out that maybe we're underestimating what the need is? I don't want to say that's won't happen. We have expanded the agency substantially. I'll talk a little bit more about our recruiting and where we stand with respect to filling out the staffing plan. But we're going from an agency that at one point was in the 40s in terms of headcount. And it's now going to almost 70. So it's substantial growth. We don't want to expand too quickly. Everybody is working extremely hard to keep up with the workload, but everybody's also working hard on the recruiting effort. So a good deal of work goes into, obviously, the identification of candidates, the interviewing of them. So I would say not only are we keeping up with the caseload, but we're positioned once we fill out the staffing plan to be in pretty good shape to stay where we are. And as we go through it, you'll see that our numbers, don't get ahead of myself, but you'll see that lobbying group is keeping up with their caseload, investigation and enforcement is keeping up with theirs. The ethics group which we have more than doubled. Anticipation of more work coming in as a result of expanded training. It's keeping up with their workload. The training group as well. A lot of recruiting is going on. That part of the operation is keeping up, but everybody's working extremely hard. Extremely hard. And we're expanding staffing to meet that need and to relieve some of that burden. Thank you. Next, we have work phase financial disclosure. This is another area where the work is on the invoice. As you know, last May 15th was the deadline for the non-academic filers to file their financial disclosure statements. There was something in excess of over 5,000 failure to file notices that went out. Those go out 30 days after a failure occurs. Of those over 5,000, I think only 35 remain outstanding. And Melinda Funk, our Deputy Director of FDS, and her team very hard to get those remaining numbers in. And as you can see, that's out of a very substantial number of filings. So 30,000 have come in today. Tiny percentage they're still working on. Last Friday, the 15th of November, was the filing deadline for the academic filers. Melinda's group generated over 4,700 advance notices to the group, which go out the month before the due date, reminding filers to get their filings in. More than half at the deadline, and Linda can update us on where we are now. Process. One thing you'll see is that year to date, we're more than 2,000 filings above where the commission was last year. Financial disclosure statement filings. And when the remaining financial disclosure statements are in from the academic community, we should be in excess of 34,000, somewhere approaching 35,000 total financial disclosure statements that come in. And I should add that in addition to those two target dates, the May 15th and November 15th, others coming into the system, new hires have 30 days from their hiring to get their financial disclosure statements in. So over and above those two boluses of filings, there's a constant financial disclosure statements coming in. And the only other thing to note is that over 300 exemption requests have come in so far this year. A little less than 1%. The very kinds of exemptions that come in. Some to not report certain information or have it redacted. And with respect to threshold filers, they can ask for a flat out exemption depending upon their circumstances. And those have to be filed before the time the financial disclosure statements are filed. With that, let me turn it over to Melinda. Commissioner.
We reached a stage where most of these are electronically filed.
The overwhelming number, I'll defer to Melinda on a finer breakdown, but the overwhelming number are filed electronically. There's still some number that come in on paper. The legislative filings still come over in hard copy. So the way the law is structured, they're filed first with the Legislative Ethics Commission, they come to us. But most filers, and I've said this before, it's tremendously advantageous to file electronically because your data is saved. And in subsequent filings, you merely have to update the information rather than starting from scratch as you would have to paper filing. Melinda?
Good morning, commissioners. To update you on some information within the report, I did not issue any failed files in the month of October. I plan on issuing my next round of failed files the first week of December, which will be just over 2,100 notices of failure to file to academic filers that missed the November 15th deadline, and 394 to non-academics that came on board meeting the requirement that missed their 30-day deadline. I'm assuming within the next couple of weeks, a few more of the filings will come in, so the numbers will go down. And to give you some perspective of the academic filings, on October 15th, I issued just over 4,700 notices to academic employees. Out of that number, 97 applied for individual exemptions that were granted. I received 30 extension requests from academic employees for a 45-day deadline, so their filings will be due at the end of December. And currently, I have 2,164 delinquent for academic filings. With regards to the outstanding filings that I reported for October, we had 35. These were the remainders that had not responded to their notice of failure to file issued in September. As of this morning, I am down to 10. Each individual has been notified if the filing is not completed by the end of the week, they will be issued a notice of delinquency. And I am working with the agencies to get these filings resolved before it goes to the next step.
Thank you. And we will, after those academic failure to file notices go out, we'll provide a breakdown in the December operations report, so you can see which campuses and colleges are represented by those failure to files. But unfortunately, this is a normal part of what we see with respect to the November filings, which occurred during the academic semester. So there's some catch-up that takes place. And as Commission requested previously, we are working on developing systems to get off some of these delays that we're seeing in the filing of the information. It both impacts transparency because these are available for public inspection, and they serve many other roles in the ethics compliance process. It's also a drain on staff time because the consequence of not filing on time is that Melinda and her group, and we have had it, have to spend their time in addition to the processing work they do on the financial disclosure statements. They have to spend their time casing down the late filers. This is one area too where, ultimately if the filings don't take place, consequences are quite severe when they go up to the enforcement division. So we make every effort to encourage filers to get their filings in as quickly as possible. Any other questions? Again, Belinda, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, page 5, training statistics. Again, we're continuing to report separately the number of individuals who are trained by our staff, which in October conducted 17 trainings themselves for over 2,600 employees. And then separately those who are trained, live trained, effectively in the field by their ethics, by their agency ethics officers and trainers. And it's over 6,900 who took the on-demand course, and another 5,400 who were trained by their own trainers. So we have over 12,000 individuals who received training in October. That's our target, to get to our goal of having one training administered to every state employee in the executive branch by the end of this year. We're needing to hit that target, and we're hitting it. In fact, if you take together the number of trainings that were conducted in 2022, the total in 2023 over 153,000, and where we are year to date, which is over 131,000. If you add to that trainings that we anticipate being conducted in November and December at that rate, we will have over 330,000 individual trainings conducted, which corresponds to more or less the size of the executive branch. So we're doing that.
Explain the last column, number of individuals who completed lobbying training is a decline, but I assume that's to be explained.
Yeah, I mean, that, the ethics training for lobbyists is on a completely different schedule. Doesn't even correspond to the biennial registrations schedule, it's triennial.
Oh, I see.
And most of the lobbyists, because of statutory requirement, talk about penalties or not for that, completed their training in the first year. We required them to, we put up the new training because we now have clients included, who weren't included previously. We put that up at the beginning of 2023. And very quickly, nearly 80% of lobbyists and clients completed that training. So now we have new folks coming into the system.
I have two other unrelated questions relating to training. First of all, we were all supposed to receive an evaluation form for the training we all took a week or two ago. None of us received it.
Yeah, I'll check with Marlena Diaz, Deputy Director, on where we stand with that. There may have been a miscommunication that we can address.
And then the second question I had is, a month or so ago, you sent us an email of what we would be saying when we participate in the training programs. I was just wondering, is that scheduled yet? You said you'd be sending us a schedule, but we haven't heard of it.
Yeah, and that's going to be going out. We have the schedule now, and we're going to be circulating that to commissioners today after the meeting. So you will be receiving dates that you can sign up for. And we have a system in place for it. Martha's going to be the traffic manager. So we're going to ask you to reach out to her for your selected dates. I have to add one caveat. For good and sufficient reasons, State Information Technology Services decided that last Friday was going to be the date that they were going to convert some portion of the state workforce to a new form of WebEx. And as some commissioners know from committee meeting we were holding, it took place from the training we were conducting. It took place, but it didn't affect the entire workforce. It has wreaked a little bit of havoc with the scheduling of trainings generally by the group. They're going to keep them up, but it's just affected the ability to just log into WebEx and take a day. So once they get everybody transferred over, and that's driven not by us, but by ITS, you'll be able to log in there yourself. But for now, information will have to be passed to Martha to get commissioners signed up for their appearances.
Can I mention?
Yes.
It brought to my attention at the last meeting by one of the commissioners as to whether or not the Education Committee, which was not established at the time, reviewed that and brought forth recommendations. And although you and I had spoken about it, we really have not done that. And my question is, should we put that on our agenda for our next meeting to discuss and present to the board an official policy regarding an active role for the commissioners involved in training? We went back and forth, and then you and I are on the same page with regard to the basic principles, but we really didn't bring it back to the board as a recommendation. I would like to just kind of hold off on that, on moving forward with the existing program until the committee has time to look at that, and we're ready to be early on so that we can do it in time for the next meeting, if that's your pleasure, or after the holidays.
We will defer to Commissioner's preference on that. We were, ready to move forward with it and share the script.
Script is better for me. Is the questions we had discussed at various times the role the commissions should play. Should it be, for example, an active role where we are out in the field attending live sessions? Should we be available to answer questions if asked, or should it just be a role where we show our interest by being scripted as we at video conferencing? And we really haven't hashed that out as a committee. I had to agree the commission brought to my attention that we really didn't look at it from that perspective, discuss it, and then bring it back to the board. But so I'm comfortable with the outcome of it. I just need to be comfortable with the framework of which it's from.
Understood. Well, we can bring it back to committee, and the team can make presentation, provide whatever materials would be helpful in that process. But we were doing our best to move this along.
Thank you for that.
See,
Cindy, the chair has his hand raised. Chair Austin has his hand raised.
Just a quick question. Would it be wiser, do you think, Commissioner Edwards, to have the Education Committee report on that, and then we put it on the agenda as to which way the committee thinks is the best way to go?
That's my suggestion. Yes, I would agree with that suggestion. But again, if the time is of essence, I know it's holiday season. We will make ourselves available in December. If not, we can do it after it at your.
All right, we'll work.
That's fine.
You and the other committee members to schedule a meeting so that we can have something to present at the December meeting. Of course.
All right, good. We'll refer that to committee.
Sandy, Sandy, before we move on, I have one comment about how we present the training statistics. I think it could be useful. I find it helpful when you always tell us where the combined total is relative to the goal we're trying to meet. That's the key. Are we on track to meet the goal of meeting the statutory training levels? And I think since we have footnotes in there, I think it could be useful to just add a footnote that says where we are relative to the goal, because that I think is probably one of the most important facts.
Yes, and absolutely. And the number, you asked the question, we had over 25,000 individuals trained in 2022, 153 plus in 2023. Year to date, we're at 131,668. We're probably above that now, as I mentioned before. And as I'm sure Marlene is going to point out, there is a reporting lag. Not all agencies are yet in our system. Many still need to be brought into a computerized system. So there's a lot of manual reporting taking place. So there is lag, but at least in terms of the reporting figures, we're almost at 132,000. If you add all of that in, we're at 309,668. More or less to date with statistics. So we can maintain the rate of 12,000 or so. By my calculation, we would be at 333,430. One caveat is some individuals have been in training, some agencies have been very good at that. Most are at the one training level. And again, our target, so we're on target for this year. Next year, the goal is by the end of 2025 to have everyone in the executive workforce in 2 trainings. 2 lives will satisfy the requirement, an on-demand and a live training will satisfy the requirement. So for next year, essentially the same target will have to be hit. About half the workforce that hasn't had getting another training, depending on the number. Haven't had 2 trainings yet. So it's ambitious, and then we'll be in the full cycle 2022 forward, alternating live and on demand. And the goal is to have half the workforce receiving live in any given year, and half using the on-demand facility for the training, so that we're not trying every other year to do over 300,000 live trainings, which is an extremely heavy lift. The other thing, and Marlene could talk more about it, is currently the on-demand training, which is quite comprehensive and has the gatekeeping mechanisms that commissioners have requested. It's currently available to those agencies that participate in the state OER administered state learning management system. Marlena and her group are working to have the same features available to work on other platforms. A lot of the campuses have learning management systems that are compatible with the state system. Many of them don't. So Marlena and others are working to come up with a format. Potentially we'll have to go to outside vendors so that the on-demand component of the training program can work properly on really any web server that's out there. But Marlena, anything to add?
Sure. Good morning. Thanks, Andy. So the training team held a well-received ethics forum earlier in the month on November 7th. On the role and responsibilities of the ethics officer, we had a combination of ethics officers attend statewide in addition to training compliance officers. That's led to a steady, significant number of outreach meetings for both myself and other members of the team, establishing both outlier and existing agencies in the system, doing demonstrations as well as data cleanup. We've also participated in the responsible party update training that Carol had informed you early on. Just to give you a snapshot of our live training, our October live training sessions were all well over capacity for the month of October. Our November enrollments is following the same trend. As Sandy mentioned, unfortunately, due to the timing of ITS, and our WebEx migration, we won't be able to announce our December calendar, even though we do have dates already planned until after our team migrates to eliminate a lot of issues technology-wise that could occur in the middle of a transition there. Unfortunately, the team is down a member. We lost one of our training associates. They've moved on to greener pastures. We're very excited for them, but unfortunately, it's left a hole in the training unit. So tomorrow we start a very aggressive round of recruiting for the team. In total, in the next 2 days, we'll probably be interviewing around 9 candidates to kind of alleviate, obviously, that loss on the team. So with regards to an earlier question that I overheard, I checked with the team. So regarding your evaluations, when you sign off of the WebEx, a link generally appears and it gives you access to our online evaluation. But I informed the team and they'll be sending you our PDF version of the evaluation. And I checked the application and you folks have all been marked completed. So we appreciate you attending. We hope you enjoyed the training as much as we enjoyed delivering it. And those system-generated notifications were sent to your email, your confirmation of completion there.
All right, thank you. Yeah, again, we have that WebEx issue. I know some folks got error messages when they first tried to log on, and regular WebEx was not working. That contributed to it. So that's the answer to that. I will add that, as Marlena's pointed out, we have some shorthandedness. We've talked about it before in the group. We have done a procurement. We've completed the procurement. So we will be bringing in some temporary assistance for the unit while, as Marlena has said, they're very aggressive conducting our recruitment. Commissioner.
2 comments. In regard to Elena's question about the training, yes, it was very intimidating. Thank you very much. I thought it was very well done. And thank you for providing that to us. I do have a question though. Do you offer, in preparation for your trainings, some manual or written material that the participants can review before going into the actual training?
Sure. So we offer 2 sets of materials, one for the participants, so one generally for the employees. We have a plain language guide to the ethics laws that gives employees a high-level overview of all of the ethics laws that may apply to them. In addition to that, for our population of ethics officers, training compliant officers in contact, or anybody who may be delivering the training that you participated in the other day, we have a comprehensive SharePoint site where we have different versions of the CETC. So as an example, if we have an ethics officer who is from our CUNY campuses, they can provide the campus edition to their employees, and we provide them with comprehensive training notes in addition to the plain language guide that they're able to provide to their employees either before, after, or during the training.
So that's material that we received when we first came on the commission, or is that? Because we didn't get that. It would have been helpful for me, not being in the legal field, to have an overview that I could have studied and perhaps to have done better on the following questions.
I'll have to circle back with the team, but they are in the process of actually emailing each of you your evaluations. So in addition to that, we'll also provide you with the link to the plain language guide. It's just an online PDF that's off of our website that's available for anyone to Austin.
It's more of a pamphlet than a full book, and it's easy for employees to reference. I wasn't sure if it was included in the link to the invite itself. It's possible it was, possible it may not have been, but there's usually some materials
included in my recommendations. So in terms, I'll just include my comments in the recommendations. I get it.
The statutes upon which our trainers relied are all on the website and accessible very easily that way as well.
Yeah, I would add too, everybody's been provided with, and we make available on the website, the Ethics and Lobbying in New York Comprehensive Guide, which I think is a phenomenal introduction and overview of the law with lots of very specific citations and explanations. Staff is in the process, this was prepared in 2019, staff is in the process of coming up with an updated edition of the book.
But that's not the plain language that the staff is talking about.
No. That's
it's on your screen right now. Just to give you an idea, it's on your screen right now. So this is what we provide. It's just an online PDF. It's around 40 pages long. And it just gives you, here's our comprehensive table of contents. So it covers everything that you learned in the training, everything from standards of conduct to 73 to gifts, outside activities, avoiding conflicts of interest, post-employment. So it's very comprehensive. My unit, we definitely strive on making, wherever possible, more plain language materials. And this is what we provide to all of our participants. So I'll make sure that you all receive a link to that so that you can review the publication, during your free time.
Thank you.
Commissioner James.
My second question,
sorry, go ahead.
My second question is in response to Nancy's comment regarding clearer description of goals accomplished versus goals anticipated. And I just wanted to let you know that I have put on the agenda for the Education Committee the idea of going back and looking at the tool that staff prepared in terms of setting goals and expectations for fiscal 24. I've asked Sandy to prepare a comparative to show the goals, the various goals we had, our benchmarks, and the degree to which they've been achieved. And so that would be helpful. Hopefully that will be helpful to you in better understanding the degree to which we're on line with our expectations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner James and then Commissioner Cardozo.
What happens if a person being trained is unable to answer the poll? I think the polls were put in to make sure people were paying attention and following.
So we all understand that because we have to provide the course primarily as in a video conferencing type of technology, for some agents, the majority of the time we utilize WebEx that does contain those polling features. For other agencies that prefer to use their own video conferencing software, whether that be Zoom as an example, or Teams or Google Meet, and other examples. So we often tell participants for the first 15 minutes of our housekeeping section of the training, we try to help folks understand how to utilize the poll. However, if they're unable to utilize the poll because let's say they're using an iPad or they're using Safari or they're using a browser in which WebEx may not be compatible or their browser is not fully upgraded to what it needs to be in order to be able to utilize those features, and we encourage our participants to do one of two things. They can either respond in the chat box, and generally we have not noticed any issues with the chat box, and if that fails, as a last resort, we just ask them to email us some of their responses, and that way we know that they're actively engaged. In addition to monitoring our WebEx attendance reports, in which we're monitoring to make sure that participants have been logged in since we begin conflicts of interest all the way to the end. So we do have alternate methods to assist those individuals who, for whatever reason, and it's beyond our own control, may have issues with either the polling, their browser's not up to date, they're using software that's not compatible, et cetera.
Sorry, Marlena, the question was, what if they get the questions wrong, I think?
Oh, what if they get the questions wrong? Well, I apologize. I misheard. I thought you asked what happens if they can't utilize the polls. Well, nothing happens. If, with us, they're going to receive credit. We generally just provide them feedback and let them know during the training what the correct answer is or what the best answer would be in that situation.
And that's the pedagogical method that's used and that complies, in our judgment, with the statutory requirement. It does require that it be live and it be interactive. In terms of grading the individuals at the end of the course, there is no grade that's provided. I will say on the on-demand, until you get the answer right, you can't go to the next section, so you can't complete the course. But of course, it tells you.
Oh, that's good.
It tells you ultimately what the answer is. As you struggle with it, it's a multiple choice kind of thing ultimately that you have to deal with. But in terms of individual grading, there is no capacity for that.
Yeah, I guess my question is if in fact they're answering the questions wrong or they're not paying attention, they don't respond, should they be required to repeat it?
Well, if they don't respond, they're not going to get the completion of the course. So they have to be independent.
But they respond correctly. It doesn't suggest to me that that may not be well enough informed of the regulations.
Well, we tell them what the correct answer is. Do we go back and test them again? No. The answer is no. And in terms of technological approach to that, we have to give live training. We can't, in alternate years, we can automate the process and have the gatekeeping function. In the live function, we don't have the ability to grade individuals, and that would require not just an increase in staffing here, but an increase in staffing at the agency level, particularly for the larger agencies that have thousands of employees.
Yes, I would suggest that since the committee is going to be meeting to talk about some training issues, maybe if commissioners have more questions about this, it could be taken up in that context. Commissioner Cardozo?
Do we have separate statistics on lobbying clients who have taken the required training? So I understand it now. You have to, correct, but do we have breakdown? It says number of individuals who completed lobbying training, but does that include both the lobbying clients?
It does. It's aggregated here. We can in future reports, if you'd like, break it out separately. We haven't done that.
Well, I suggest that we do that because I've continued to be concerned the ability, at least last time I looked, of lobbying clients to being able to opt out of a large portion of the training program. Claudia and I have discussed this for over a year.
Yeah, and that's because we are mounting that on a web platform. We're working with the vendor, with Lectora, and considering other providers on a way to incorporate the gatekeeping functions that we have in the SLMS format into a web-hosted version of the training. But we haven't gotten there yet.
All right, I think I would suggest we keep moving if we can. We've got more staff reports.
We do. Page 6, audit and review. Another 94 targeted FDS reviews were completed in October. That part of the function is essentially completed. It was robust, 966 targeted reviews were completed. So the group has now turned its attention to the random FDS review process. Random audits of lobbying filings, we're up to 691 for the year. We're already ahead of last year's total. And the goal is to increase the capabilities of the unit. We've talked about the new software upgrade, which is giving greater capability and facility to the group. Added, we'll talk about it a little bit, to the audit and review capabilities of the group. Last year, the group conducted 700 random lobbying audits, 914 random FDS reviews, and 359 targeted FDS reviews. That was an off year, 2023, election off year. So we get more when we have candidates who are running for office, and that's why we have a much higher number this year. Our goal is to exceed those figures for this year and in subsequent years. And unless there are any questions, Gareth Parent is Deputy Director of Compliance Audit and Review. Gareth, anything to add?
Morning, all. Morning, Judge. Yeah, so we're essentially on target on both the lobbying side and on the FDS side. As the judge said there, we've exhausted the list of the targeted review. And so going forward in subsequent months, most of the reviews that will be conducted will be random reviews. And there will still be 1 and 2 targeted reviews as folks either were delinquent or failed to file, or maybe they submitted the FDS, but then they saved it, but they hadn't submitted it. But there's always 1 and 2 stragglers left on the targeted side. But in terms of the comprehensive targeted list, we've exhausted that list, and at the end of November, we've moved on to random reviews. So for the rest of the time, we'll be working on random reviews until May 15th again, when the next filing deadline is. And in terms of lobbying, as the judge said, we're about 130 year to date, more than what we completed last year. The 88 number there is just the natural ebb and flow of the audit and source documentation coming in and waiting for source documentation and so forth. So the next month that number might be a lot more, or it might be the same. But we're on pace to probably exceed the amount of audits we completed last year. So both on the lobbying side and on the FDS side, we're on target. The lobbying side much more so. The FDS side, maybe not as on target as we wish to be, as we wait for position to get filled. And in terms of recruiting, I think we have 1 person coming in on the FDS side, analyst coming in. Not sure when he or she might start, and on the audit side, the same thing. So I think at this point, and Kavita could correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're just essentially waiting on DOB approval and so forth. But once those folks come in, we'll be in much better shape. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gareth. Any questions? Thank you. Finally, page 7, Public Information Division. Another 15 requests coming in, 11 out the door, 267 pages of documents, 4 pending requests, and everything's on time. Emily DeSantis, our Director of many things, including Public Information. Communications.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, I just want to echo what Carol said about our training yesterday. It was very well received by the reporters. I got a lot of good feedback. They found it very helpful to learn how to use the public search query more efficiently to find the information in an easier way. And we also, of course, offered to help them anytime they need assistance. So that went really well. So we're happy to do that. There were 10 reporters on that call, most of them who cover the Capitol and things happening here in Albany. So that was a really good targeted bunch.
Thank you. Any questions? Let me say that with respect to recruiting, we're moving forward fairly aggressively with completing the expanded staffing plan, including, as Gareth mentioned, filling vacancies in the compliance audit review group, compliance auditors and a compliance analyst. As I said, for FDS filings, but we do have two candidates who have accepted offers, and we have submitted necessary documentation to the Division of Budget. So we're just waiting for those approvals to come through to bring those individuals on. In addition, we are, as Marlena mentioned, recruiting for 2 training assistants in the education group, as well as a training associate trainer. They've got lots of interviews scheduled, and in the meantime, as I said, we've done a procurement, and we will, which has gone through the approval process. We've got some candidates now from the temp agency. Individuals will be bringing in the meantime while we're recruiting for full-time candidates to fill in on the administrative end in that group. We have also recruited successfully, again, waiting for final DOB approvals to go through. A research data analyst, very well qualified individual who will be assigned to the executive group and be available throughout the agency. She'll be a great asset in dealing with some of the media questions that come through, and in augmenting the ability of Emily's group to push out more and more information, really across the span of the agency. That we do. We have vacancies in other groups as well, at Carol's group, in lobbying and investigations and enforcement. And are posted on the website. So all the vacancies are currently posted on the website, and we're actively recruiting with good candidates across the board. Unless there are any questions. Next item I have is the budget update under tab C. The first item, the first chart shows where we are today. The second chart, back of the page, shows our prevention. As I've said previously, we're projecting, and this is totally dependent on where we end up with the effort. A small surplus at the end of the year, entirely attributable to the amount of time it takes to fill positions. As we've discussed in connection with our budget request made last month for the next fiscal year, we need additional money, and we've asked for it to maintain the expanded staff. And that's our goal. In succeeding years, we may well want to expand staff, but first we wanted to deal with what we have, see how that meets our needs as projected. I'm quite confident once we fill out the plan, we'll have the resources we need, not only to keep up with the workload, but also to take on some of the more ambitious work, such as conducting greater numbers of audits, both the FDS and the lobbying side of the operation. Doing more work on intake in the lobbying division, giving Brian and Mike and the group investigations and enforcement greater tools that are available to them. And and increase the capabilities of the training group, really across the board, not just limited to ethics training that they're providing, both to the workforce and to the lobbying community, but also to other training functions and educational functions we want to perform, interested groups and with the public. Any questions? Next item under tab B, latest paid per diems. These were paid on November 6th. Will be posted on the website. I won't go into the detail. The total is $18,532.44. And that covers the September commission meeting, in the October meeting, the agenda working group, as well as preparation hours for some commissioners for July and August. And we have the monthly breakout as well as the request on the per diems. The year-to-date, the fiscal year-to-date total is $145,831.42.
Actually, let me just jump in. I realized I made a mistake of parliamentary procedure, I believe, although staff can correct me if I'm wrong. To refer something to committee under Robert's rules, we should have a motion and a majority vote. So Commissioner Edwards, we had talked about referring some issues related to training to be taken up in the education committee. I think we should have done that by motion rather than just saying that it was going to happen. I wonder if somebody could help me remember what it was that we had, that we would talk about.
Commissioner participation. And
Commissioner participation, right.
In the trainings. But I would add too, the amended procedures for the commission on committees, I believe gives the chair also the ability to refer matters to committee. I don't know if that sounds wrong.
But that issue was already given to the committee, I think, prior to, right?
I don't think we voted on that.
Last year, we had talked about commissioner participation, and it was deferred to the education committee under Fred's leadership. Am I correct? Yes. It's just that we did not follow the process by bringing it back to the committee. So I don't think that a recommendation is helpful.
I don't know if that.
Those will work.
I believe the chair has the discretion.
Sorry, guys.
I'm not sure whether I think that's right. I wonder if it would be, since I doubt anyone will disagree, could we do a motion and ask staff for a later opinion on whether such a motion is necessary for the future?
All right, I so move.
Second. Any further discussions? All right, all in favor of referring to the education committee the question of commissioner participation in trainings, please say aye.
I'd like to add a friendly amendment to that. Just, is it all right to do that?
We haven't finished voting, so I think so.
That it be worded that the commissioner resumes the directive that it had to examine the potential roles for the committees for the commissioners.
Chair Austin, would you accept as a friendly amendment to your motion the rewording that says we will continue the previous practice of the education committee? No, did I say that?
No, the previous practice, not the previous practice, that the education committee would examine potential ways for which the commissioners would be involved in training.
Would resume, the committee would resume examining the ways in which individual commissioners could be involved in training. Yeah. Is that okay? Okay, accepts the friendly amendment. So I believe at this point I can ask for the vote on the motion again. Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, thanks very much.
Do we know what was the vote?
It was unanimous.
Commissioner Groenewegen, I just didn't see.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Groenewegen, did you vote for or
I
against?
voted yes.
You voted yes, thank
I
you.
voted in the affirmative, yes.
Next item is under tab E. Second quarter ethics training report. As required by the statute, Commission files a quarterly aggregate report of the status of its training efforts, both with respect to work ethics training and ethics training. And we well with the LAC, as permitted by the statute, has taken on obligation to train members of the legislature and their staffs. So that data is in the report. It shows again that we're on target. You'll see that in the second quarter of 45,436 officers received ethics training. That's under tab E. If you go to page 5. Figures there. Training staff were completed. So we've also shown the first quarter, just under 40,000. But the report is for the second quarter. We have 45,436 employees and officers trained, roughly half and half. So 23,573 received live, which can be in person or online training, and 21,862 received on demand training that period. And that report was filed as required with legislative leadership and with the executive chamber.
And I'll go for the executive.
Goal for the period beginning with the enactment of ECRA in the middle of 2022 is to have the entire workforce, which varies from year to year. But it's somewhere, we're calling it 330,000 as a kind of outer limit. It calls for employees to receive one training by the end of 2024. So 45,000 in a quarter is a little south of the 12,000. I'm sorry, it's a little bit north. Chair.
Yes, is there a way of including on the listing that's in the quarterly report and a up-to-date number for the year?
Yeah, we did.
I think looking at it in a vacuum is kind of deceptive as to what we've been accomplishing. So if we have the year-to-date, that would, I think, make the numbers look and feel a bit better.
Yeah, we did that. On page 5, we also have a column for year to date. So it covers the first 2 quarters of calendar year.
I think I'm getting confused with this 300,000 number.
Yeah,
I understand. That's the gross number. I was thinking more in terms of by agency. In the columns and the following pages.
So we do have it by agency. We've actually added a little bit more information than the report requires. For that reason, having a little bit of granularity in it. So we kind of exceeded the statutory requirement by breaking it down by agency. Okay. That's a figure, for the annual report. We provide that data, but we thought it would make sense to include it for the second quarters as well.
I guess for me, it's difficult, but I agree with Glenn that doesn't give me the context I need to understand where we are. and I can understand you doing this for statutory purposes, but it's gotta be a way that we can quickly look at a chart that says, this is what we agreed to do over the X number over 3 years. Here's how we broke it down in years, and here's where we are. And it might not be suited for here, but I just think this 8,500 number out of context doesn't help me.
Now, my thought was, and thank you, Claudia, my thought was just to just have the casual reader understand that this quarterly report by agency, this agency is doing great and the other agency is not doing so great. And it might put some people who are looking to inquiry as to what's going on with the not so great agencies' results.
All right, for the third quarter, we will provide a recap that takes us back, if you will, to inception and show the cumulative total from July 8th of 2022 forward. We have been doing that in the annual report. We can add that. We obviously have the figures. I've given them to you, and you see it in the monthly operation reports and in my report. So we will do it.
Thank you.
Can you explain back on page 10, this happens in a couple of instances. You have an employee count of 158, but Judy, his borough committee, is middle of the page. And the combined total is 260. How do we do that?
259 individuals. I mean, how do they?
I mean, if we only start with 158 people.
Well, they may have taken multiple trainings. So we do have entities with multiple trainings. It's not likely it was a single form. We'll have to double check on that.
Okay, so it's double counting.
It may be double. Yeah, but we'll confirm that. Because we're between systems, one thing that's happening is we're getting double counting in the manual system coming in, the electronic system, and this happened to coincide with that period where, we were doing the conversion over.
I just thought they were more conscientious about the training.
Some people like the training so much they took another course.
Yeah. And why is, Metropolitan Transportation Authority, they've got 72,000 employees, only 1,000 of them took training. On page 13.
Yeah, this is the report. The MTA is a complicated entity, and we are involved in a good deal of systems work with them. And in fact, we have an IT team that's now split, doing double duty so that we can automate their training data coming in to us, which is a big project. Because in order for our system to work, we need to have employee data for every agency, including the authorities that are governed by the training department. So we've been working with them to get the necessary data. So it's not fully automated. We know they are doing a huge amount of training. They have a huge training capability. But we don't have all of their data in our system yet. There are a number of agencies for which we don't have data yet either because of protocols that have to be worked in. Electronic protocols. Every agency keeps their data in their own way. MTA is not part, for example, of the controllers payrolling division. They have their own, so we can't suck the data out of that. Megan and her group have negotiated data sharing agreement with all of the agencies that are under the umbrella of the controller's office to bring their data in. MTA is not in that position. So we have to create a separate vehicle to get their data. We're also working with them to automate the way they submit statutorily required information to Melinda's group, to the FDS unit. their designations of policymakers and threshold filers, which used to be part of the training system. Now we've broadened the training system. It's actually split the training system. So that's why you're seeing a lot of underreported NTA statistics. So the numbers are undoubtedly much larger, but we don't have it in our system yet.
And this combined total, the combined total on page 17, which I don't have a total for, somehow ties into what number? 85,000?
No, it ties into the 45. It ties into the number for the second quarter. These are second quarter statistics. So it's the 45,436 that it ties with.
Okay.
And again, it's only second quarter.
Unless there's more discussion, the next, go ahead and see.
It appears to me that it looks like a lot of medical facilities are not complying to a great extent. They all did it last year.
You know, generally speaking, there's a lot of work that has to go into working with medical facilities and academic facilities. Medical facilities have come to us in some instances with a number of requests, modifications and so on to the training program because of the way the schedules are structured. Same thing with some of the authorities like MTA, which have labor management agreements that affect the availability of employees for training sessions. So there's a lot of complexity under the government we have to deal with in getting them into the system.
But these are a lot of challenges that you're facing. I mean, it's just a lot of work. And I know that this is standard, but it doesn't really get at some of the issues you so clearly outlined here that impact staff. I mean, all the complexities, I'm just saying, is there a way in which that could be incorporated in some kind of report so that legislators understand the complexity of what your task is? I mean, these numbers are great, but what you're providing me in terms of giving me context is even more stronger. But it gets hidden in all these numbers for me.
There's a lot of good work and difficult work that Marlene and Megan and others are doing to keep the system going, to achieve what has been achieved.
But the question
it's really a lot of work.
The question is, how do legislators understand that and the public at large?
Well, you know, the goal is, as a result of all of that work, and this system that's been built, she's in the process of implementing, to put it all in a manageable place. So they're, you know, as you can imagine, in building a system to a dispersed system, distributed system to train over 300,000 people for a lot of details lying under the covers that need to be dealt with. But Group has been doing a phenomenal job getting that done. And once we get to the point where we've captured all the data, we've automated some of the things, and we figured out the challenges in getting the on-demand training module to work on all platforms. It'll all go much more smoothly. You know, then there will be an administrative issue. But yeah, there are challenges, and you know, the legislature gave us a mandate, and we're doing what we can to meet it, and I think we're getting there. At least through the end of this year, we're looking good. Next year, it's going to be a challenging year, and then after that, everyone throughout the state executive branch is going to have to do their part to keep this going.
Can we move to the Executive Law 94 review updates? What about? Sorry, I'm on the agenda at the end of item 3. So you won't find it by paging through the attachments because there's no.
There's not. Just briefly to recap where we are. We're on schedule to meet programs. The review was conducted by Michael Sand for commissioners of the Seminole Advisory Opinions, Ethics Advisory. That leg was completed. Most commissioners have a follow-up class scheduled for those who weren't able to participate in that. The survey was completed at the October meeting. You have the presentation from the Wall Market Research, results of the survey, both surveys, of the ethics survey and of the lobbying survey. We now had public hearing to provide additional input into the process. And then what we need to do is go back, digest all the information we have to go back to the plan that the commission adopted. We're essentially up to phase 3. Phase 3 involves taking what we've learned through the first 2 phases of the process, assessment, what's working, what isn't working as well as we would like it to work, where improvement makes sense. At that point, once we've identified what the potential issues are, essentially going out, looking at how other states, how the federal ethics commission, others have dealt with similar issues they face them. On that, was a plan, a remedial plan, basic vision that's not cast in stone. That plan would then be vetted at future public hearing to get public input into the process. If proposed regulations come out of it, or amendments to regulations, we would have to go staff the process for vetting those. If it's determined that legislative change of some kind is needed or augmentation, that would feed into subsequent legislative agenda. And if it's a matter of advisory opinions, it would come back to the commission to revisit the advisory opinions. And, we left out the possibility it could also have budgetary impacts. There may be budgetary needs, expansions, changes in the way we're positioned. That will come out of that. But that's from my perspective where we are in the process.
So what is the next step from where we're, what's happening next?
There are 2 things going on. One, staff members are looking at some of the observations that came out of the survey process, where immediate things can be done, improving some of the guidance that we put out, doing some more communicating, short-term kinds of things. The rest of it, I think this is something we should discuss. I would suggest a committee with relevant staff support and participation to take what we have and outline, again, what we think the takeaways are from the survey process, from the advisory opinion review process.
And would that also be the appropriate time for commissioners to make whatever suggestions they might have about issues?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yes, self-generated recommendations. Absolutely. Integral to that, as informed by the input that we have on the survey process.
Let's go ahead, Commissioner.
The findings from that survey seem very related to training. But I'm just wondering if it's appropriate for other communities to look at it, look at policy implications for that. Or should we wait until after the staff assessment? Because I was hoping to do that beforehand, but now that you're claiming this, you're proposing establishing another committee to look at everything?
I think that would be the next step. I think it would be, we can examine it at the staff level first, and I think that's a sensible approach. So let staff prepare an assessment for the commission to consider. And I guess at that point, it would be up to the body to determine whether to form.
I have a thought, but does anybody else have a thought or question or comment? So I'll just say, for whatever it's worth, my instinct would be that because these issues. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Groenewegen, did you want to?
I was just going to voice my support for the executive director's recommendation that the staff be responsible for the the compilation of what we have so far, and then presenting something to the full commission just for consideration. And at that point, it looks like it needs further commission member study. We could then, if necessary, refer it to a subgroup to do that. But it seems in the first instance, it should start with the executive director and the staff. That's my opinion.
The staff could also recommend different committees that it might be delegated to, because one of the problems we had with the last structure is the creation of committees. You know, and we only create that as the existing purview of committees.
Yeah, I think I agree with both comments. My instinct would be clearly staff should be the first compiler and proposer and thinker on all these issues. And I think I would support Commissioner Grunweiden's suggestion that should be presented to the full commission, which could then decide whether there's a need for more looks by specific committees, and also supporting Commissioner Edwards' point that would allow us to be selective and avoid the undue propagation of further temporary bodies to keep track of.
Or it could be just a working group rather than a committee.
We can decide once we all talk about the issues. Yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense to me. So is that?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think we already have some ideas about things we want to move on, and I'm sure commissioners have ideas as well.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, Cindy, would it be appropriate for commissioners to reach out individually to you to suggest, like I don't want to make you come to the full group and then be like, oh, actually Commissioner so-and-so wants to propose this, and now you have to go back and think about that. Should we just reach out to you individually?
Yeah, absolutely.
Say, as staff is working on this, maybe here's one thing you could think about. And
absolutely.
Okay, so then we would suggest commissioners do that to minimize the follow-up.
Yeah, and then that would be very helpful.
Okay. So it seems like we can move to the next agenda, which is agenda item, unless there's further views on that. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is chair report and committee reports. And I guess here I would just ask, I'm looking at the main agenda. This is item 4. Just to keep track of where we are in the agenda, after item 4 is item 5, where we move into executive session. And so I just ask, can I get some kind of an estimate of whether the chair reports are going to be concise or involved? Because I do, generally speaking, believe in taking breaks every hour and a half to 2 hours. I don't want to do that if we're going to just spend 10 minutes and then go to our executive session. So,
well, I have a report from the legislative committee that will involve some time, depending upon
some discussion. Okay, then I would suggest.
If I may, for a point of personal privilege, I'm going to give my report and then leave. So if you don't mind, let me do that before you break.
Yeah, let's hear the chair's report, and then we'll take a short break and come back for committee reports. Chair Austin.
Great, thank you very much. We have some successes to report, and really congratulate our staff for helping us do it. The training session I thought was fabulous. It was far better than I thought it would be, and I think we all agreed that it was a very valuable program. So kudos to the education and training group. Really good job. I can't imagine an employee is going to be bored by that presentation, and that's a major step along the way. Secondly, the public meeting also went very well. It is nice to see that most of those who deal with us and interact with us in terms of public policy and transparency not only continue to give us ideas and contribute in that way, but took the step of supporting us in our litigation and speaking for us, speaking for our budget, and feeling as though that the inference, of course, is that feeling that they have a partner in making good government and transparency. So I think we can all be very proud of that, that our stakeholders are with us. Finally, I was going to introduce and suggest to Michael that he wait with his report until later anyway, and remembering that we will be meeting on Friday with the Legislative Committee. So with that, I thank you all. I'm sorry I can't be with you. I was really hoping to, but during the break, if Ava or Sandy could call me, I would appreciate it. Otherwise, everybody be well and have a very happy, healthy Thanksgiving.
Feel better. Thank you, Charleston. All right, and with that, let's take a 10-minute break. Come back at 11:45. Thanks.
Your life.
All right, thanks. We were delayed by some technology issues, but we're now back. And the next order of business is reports from the chairs of our committees. So can I ask, we're not in executive session. We're still in session. That's okay. I would ask the chairs of the, Lady Commissioner Edwards, do you have anything to report from the Education Committee?
No.
No report. All right, Commissioner James, anything to report from administration? All right, and Commissioner Cardozo.
Well, on behalf of the Legislative Committee, I want to give this report. The committee is planning to have a meeting this coming Friday to discuss all the proposals that we heard at the public meeting. And our plan is to discuss each of what we heard to determine whether or not any amendments should be made to our tentative legislative agenda. To change that agenda, should we add to it the items on the deferred legislative agenda, and also to consider the various new proposals that we heard. So we plan to meet this Friday, 2 days from now, with Sandy and 1 or 2 members of the staff to discuss that, and then be able to prepare a report that would then be, the commission would then have to approve or change at the December meeting so that we would finalize the legislative agenda. But subject to the time considerations, which I defer to Sandy and Ava on, I thought it might be useful to just highlight a couple of the items that were discussed at the meeting, get the rest of the commissioners' reactions as we then try to finalize. So I have identified 3 items that I think require some particular discussion. First is the discussion that we actually started on as a committee, whether we should include in our recommendations not just penalties for sexual harassment, but what I think both Jim and Dolly had said is whether we should add to that various other kinds of harassment. And so just wondering, and a number of the groups urge us to do that. So I just wondered if anybody else had a reaction to that proposal.
Commissioner Groenwagen's raising her hand here. Hello?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, if I could be heard. Thank you for bringing this up, Commissioner Cardozo. I have previously stated my concern about the express expansion of our jurisdiction to include matters of sexual harassment. And it would extend equally to matters of harassment or discrimination generally. The reason I'm concerned about this is, first, and this is a question I think for the staff, I am aware that there was a major case the former commission heard back in 2012, I believe, that involved a member of the legislature, and there was a finding among others that there was a 74H violation in addition to others based on sexual misconduct. But I know we have other matters that are out there but my question is, are there other cases, precedents for this commission or its predecessors to have treated sexual misconduct as an H violation, a 74H violation? I guess that's a question for Sandy or Keith.
Are there other cases?
I'm trying to understand the scope of the precedent.
Within the scope of the precedent, we have litigated, but understanding the question, I mean, publicly litigated because the subject was not able to obtain a seal, so the litigation used to matter. I don't want to go into too much detail because of the posture of the case. It'd be more comfortable for an executive session than an assessment, but the answer is absolutely yes.
Well, if you want to continue a discussion in executive session, I leave that to the appropriate parties to decide. But my concern relates to this. To the extent that the statutory hook for these types of claims, I believe, is rooted solely in 74H. I think that's problematic as the sole basis. And the reason I say that is because when you read H, it's unlike all the other provisions in the statutory code of conduct, in that all it states is an aspirational.
Sorry, Commissioner Gromagan, sorry, I have a point of order which interests. Go ahead, Commissioner Kerr.
I think this conversation is more appropriate for executive session.
Yes, I agree.
And I think we should.
Because why? Because why?
I will discuss that.
I think we're discussing a policy issue, not.
Well, it does impact other issues.
I defer to the general counsel's opinion about whether or not we belong in executive session.
And if after executive session, there is a consensus that it should be in public session, we still have time to discuss it.
Yes.
So I think for an abundance of caution, we should defer at least to executive, and if it's appropriate to raise again in public, we will.
Could we get?
And I think that's a question for the general counsel.
Could we ask staff for a view on this?
I would accede to the commissioners plural request to have this conversation continued in executive session, given the issues that surround and attend to the very policy that you're raising, Commissioner Gromagan.
Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Yep.
Bye.
All right, so just to I don't want to spend too much time, there's two other issues that were raised that I think worth a brief conversation, and those are two new proposals. One was the suggestion of most of the good government groups that would require the registration of lobbyists who are lobbying for the nomination of a particular candidate. And that's not on our agenda at the moment. And what do the commissioners think as to whether that should be added to our list?
Does anyone have a comment on that?
And we will discuss it further with the staff. It's just, that was just an idea.
I mean, I guess I'll say for whatever it's worth, my view is that I can't imagine any real principled reason to not have lobbying around nominations treated comparably to lobbying on other public policy issues. There's certainly high stakes public impact matters that I just don't know why the law would want, as a matter of policy, would want to treat them separately. So I would support that proposal. Commissioner Karst?
Also, I think, and I'd ask staff either now or, maybe before our meeting on Friday, the point was made at our public hearing that whether lobbying on a nomination was currently covered by the law depended on the vehicle in which the nomination was presented to the legislature. And
That just seems form over substance to me, if that's true.
Yeah, as a matter of convention, most, I think the overwhelming number, there may be some exceptions, as was pointed out at the public hearing. Most of the advice and consent function that the Senate exercises for executive appointments comes in the form of a motion and not a resolution. And therefore statutorily, and it sounds like a technicality, but it's a feature of the law. Those confirmation proceedings have not been interpreted as falling within the Lobbying Act, as constituting lobbying activity. I mean, it's as simple as that. So there may be some exceptions where a resolution is passed rather than a motion, and therefore puts it within the definition, but by and large, they're not. And to the policy question, there are literally, because the judiciary, for example, judicial appointments, state-level judicial appointments go before the Senate. Among other things, there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nominations that are being handled over a period of time. And so in that sense, it's an expansion. Now, how many of those involve the expenditure of the funds that are necessary to reach the threshold for lobbying? We don't know, but a registered lobbyist is already registered, who's brought in, then would have reporting obligations, registration obligations. So it's got lots of tentacles. In the last legislative session, there was a bill that was proposed. Ultimately was not adopted. The general position of staff is, anything that adds to transparency is a good thing from our perspective in the work that we do. But measured against that has to be the expense involved in dealing with the change, and that's something we would want to look at, make sure if it does occur, that there are adequate resources provided to us to deal with it. Among other things, the way the Lobbying Act application is set up, you don't just fill in the blank, you check off the individual name. So that's a lot of programming that has to go into it. So it's not a reason not to have transparency. It's just a reason to be sure we have the resources to do that kind of thing every year.
Well, I think that would reflect the fact that the committee should discuss this with the staff, and then we will come back with our set. And then the last item I wanted to mention is that a number of the groups suggested that small lobbying organizations that have spend a minimal amount for lobbying or have a very small staff should only have to file lobbying reports twice a year rather than every 2 months as the statute requires. And I just wondered, again, how does that strike others?
It's a good idea myself.
Well, I'll just say from a staff perspective, it's a question of transparency. So, timing is kind of everything. If the goal is to have that kind of activity reported, divulged through registration and then reported in reports, transparency would suggest more frequent is more transparent than less frequent reporting. Maybe there's a way to titrate the reporting periods to accommodate the interest of transparency. But that's a general staff position on that. I don't, there may be, more we want to look at and have a better understanding of what the concerns are.
So we see that smaller lobbying groups have, are delinquent more, or is there a pattern there?
I would defer to Carol and Megan on whether they see that kind of pattern. I'm not aware of it, but maybe they.
I'm not aware. I mean, I haven't thought about it too much, but off the top of my head, no, I'm not aware that. I think those groups just find, the reporting burdensome in general. They might be small staff. I guess I'm not really sure what their reasoning is. And I would just echo what Sandy said, is just that, it would be less transparent if you decrease the frequency of the disclosure. So.
Well, I think on all these three issues, and this is just a good background for the committee to discuss at this meeting on Friday with the assistance of staff, so we can then decide probably following some further research, whether we should get behind any of these proposals, along with there's about 10 or 12 proposals. And I think from a public relations point of view, we should, as a committee and then as a commission, decide whether we want to include any of them in our proposals. So we will meet on Friday. We will have a report for the December meeting.
Hey, can I just add one? Oh, Commissioner Edwards, why don't you go ahead?
There are two issues that I took interest in. And one was the idea of requiring mandatory financial disclosures of heads of departments and some of their direct reports. And the other is something we've struggled with as a commission, and that is the idea of disclosing information we obtain under uninformal advisory opinions.
Say that again.
You know, that we have the ability to disclose information given through uninformed advisory opinions.
We're prohibited here.
Right now, we're prohibited. Remember, we had this issue of when it's miscommunicated, we have the opportunity to respond to that.
Well, if they're miscommunicated, that's what Michael's proposed advisory opinion deals with.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that issue.
Talking about that separately.
Okay.
Yeah, you received a suggestion in the public hearing that, not opposing that, but suggesting that there be no confidentiality at all.
I'm sorry.
Or public disclosure instead for certain requests from certain level officials.
Okay. So can I just add one thought going back to the question of small lobbying organizations, just that when the committee talks to staff about this, one thing I would be curious about, along with the transparency interest that you're talking about, is whether staff has a sense that there's been an indirect effect on the lobbying business itself, in the sense that small organizations, because they feel regulatory burdens like this more extensively, does that sort of put a thumb on the scales and push the lobbying industry towards developing more consolidation and more centralization, right? In other words, is this now sort of a higher threshold of entry that you need more resources to enter lobbying as a profession? I'm not saying that's an issue, just that I'd be curious about staff sense. I certainly think, that in terms of the regulatory burden, that should be something that we're all institutionally obsessed with reducing and looking for ways to do that without compromising transparency. So when I hear a comment like that, I think, well, that may be one way of doing it. Are there others? But I'm also interested in the sort of overall effect that we're having in terms of the regulatory burden that we impose.
Well, and I think some of this discussion highlights the fact that while some of these proposals may sound very interesting, we can't investigate the bottom line in the next month. And so that we will add that to our agenda for next year. But I just think in fairness to these various groups that suggested this, we shouldn't be dismissing them at all. We should take a look at some of the things I think we would all quickly agree should not be considered. So the committee has at least an hour and a half meeting scheduled on Friday, so I'm confident that we will get this done. That's the end of my report.
Okay. And with that,
thank you. And if anyone has any other comments they want to give me before we have our meeting on Friday, please let me know.
Okay, and with that, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session under Public Officers Law 105 and Executive Law 9411 to address matters concerning pending litigation and investigative and enforcement matters that are confidential under Section 94 of the Executive Law. Is there such a motion? So moved by Commissioner Karras, seconded by Commissioner James. Is there any discussion? And I'll just add, for the benefit of the public who may be watching, that at this point, the commission will move into executive session. The stream will turn off. There are several matters scheduled for after we return at the end of the executive session. We return, we'll be discussing the public hearing that was recently held, two proposed advisory opinions, one of which deals with employees of a state agency who seek to form a not-for-profit corporate entity, and one that deals with public misstatements concerning commission guidance, as well as any other new business. Unfortunately, we're not able to predict that when that will be, because the public session will be recorded. So if you don't want to sit around and wait for us to come back, you can always catch the video. Not a public comment. I will invite a motion. I will ask for the yeas and nays on the motion. All in favor of executive session, say aye.
Aye.
And that is to be opposed. So the motion passes unanimously. Thanks very much. And we can go to executive session now.
You're live.
Welcome back. This is a continuation of the Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Governments meeting on November 20th, 2024. And I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Berland for a readout on the executive session.
Thank you, Vice Chair. In executive session, the Commission discussed matters related to litigation or legal advice. The Commission discussed a formal advisory opinion pursuant to Executive Law, Section 94.
This meeting is being recorded.
Sub 7C, hopefully we're online. The Commission approved a report pursuant to Executive Law, Section 9410F. Commission authorized steps in an investigative matter and closed 6 COELIG matters and discussed other investigative matters.
Hey, thanks very much. So the remaining item that we plan to address is a proposed advisory opinion, and I'll ask Ethics Director Sand to say what needs to be said.
I presented the facts on the opinion in executive session, and now we're asking for a vote.
I guess I'll just say for the benefit of the public, the question is, does Public Officers Law 74 permit a group of employees at a state agency to form a not-for-profit corporate entity whose purpose is to solicit contributions to their agency?
Well stated, yes.
I'm just reading that. Yes. Yes, my brilliance. So is there any further discussion, or are we ready to vote on the draft advisory opinion? Then I would entertain a motion to adopt the advisory opinion. Commissioner Cardozo moves. Commissioner Harris seconds. No further discussion. All in favor? Aye. Okay, and that's all of us. So the motion carries unanimously. The only other item on our agenda, for the benefit of the public, there is another proposed advisory opinion on the agenda, but we're tabling that until our next meeting, which leaves the proposed commission meeting schedule from January to June 2025. And I assume that my marching orders are just to ask for a motion to or is that...
Well, there are 2 emendations, or proposed emendations in the schedule.
Okay.
As the chair pointed out, 2 of the meeting dates, February and April meeting dates coincide with school holiday weeks. And so we're proposing for those 2 meetings to push them back for a week. So that will push the February meeting to February 26th rather than the 19th. The April meeting would be April 23rd rather than the 16th.
It shows up both Wednesdays as well.
We're retaining Wednesdays so we don't conflict with other scheduled plans.
So should I invite a motion?
We need a motion to approve. Yes.
Is there
a calendar as amended?
Okay, I'll give everyone a moment to check their calendars on the 26th and April 23rd.
Oh, God. I just have concert tickets in New York that I'll change.
Self-choice. Call your wife first.
No, I have a doctor's appointment the next
We are in public session.
Yes, we are in public session. Is there a motion to adopt the proposed meeting schedule as amended? Commissioner Caraballo moves. Is there a second? Commissioner James seconds. Any further discussion?
I would just say that since we knew this proposed schedule a month ago, I will vote against this for personal reasons. I think we could have learned this earlier.
What was it, because of school closings?
We knew that a week ago.
No, what is it? The holidays.
The purpose for the amendments?
Yes, for what?
Yes, school holidays.
It's school holiday week, the 2 weeks, the winter break and the spring break.
So it impacts staff, you're saying?
Well, it was raised by the chair, but it does impact staff. Staff is impacted in any event because we have to get the book out. Still work around getting the agenda book out the week before, so we'll work through that.
I also have fear to take this on April 23rd, so I'm going to vote against this for personal reasons, and then this problem could have been avoided a month ago.
Okay. Any further?
Mr. Cardozo's opinion. I think these dates have been out there for a while, and to ask us on 2 minutes' notice to check our calendars to see if these work, I think puts us in a pretty awkward position. So I can't support it this time either.
Do we?
These proposed dates were in last month's agenda.
It was.
I mean, if somebody wants to move to table this and continue working on the schedule, we can do that. That's
We can do that. We can. And I apologize. We didn't pick up. No one had picked up on it until Chair Austin really the other day pointed that out.
So can we just want to go with the 60?
I'm going to ask that we, since staff is withdrawing the proposed schedule, I'm going to ask that we, let's see, here was Commissioner Caraballo's motion, I believe. Dolly, would you be willing to withdraw the motion so that we can have these discussions? Okay, the motion is withdrawn. We'll not vote on the proposed meeting schedule at this time. Any other business in the 1 minute remaining?
They circulate this to the next meetings.
Let's work on this.
We did have a very brief report on the public hearing. It's kind of covered by Commissioner Cardozo's discussion earlier. Just to say that 7 witnesses testified, received written testimony from sources, and staff will be working with commissioners for the further analysis of the testimony. The integrated process. And the larger comprehensive process. Staff and commissioners again extend our thanks to those who participate in the public hearing process. Thank you.
Can I just ask, I'm trying to read all the testimonies and I think that we're getting them in separate emails. Is it possible that either resend or send us a packet of all of the testimonies in one package?
We can do that.
Yes, I can do that. I'll do that.
Yeah, we're going to pull it all together into one package. We just need, yeah, we kind of rolled it from the public hearing into preparing for this meeting, but we will be doing that.
All right, with that, thanks everybody. Thanks especially for the staff who put in a long day to make this meeting possible. And with that, I would invite a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Edwards moves to adjourn. Is there a second? Commissioner Kara seconds. Non-debatable. All in favor, please say aye. We're adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.